The morning sun peeked through the massive glass doors of the Blue Water Hotel as Lisa Chen adjusted her navy blazer and straightened her name tag. 6 months into her job as the front desk receptionist at one of Manhattan's most prestigious hotels, and she still felt a flutter of excitement walking into the grand marble lobby each day. "Morning, sunshine," called out Ray, the doorman who'd been working at the Blue Water for over 20 years. His salt and pepper hair and warm smile had become a comforting constant in Lisa's daily routine. "Hey, Ray, looks like another beautiful day," she replied, glancing at the clear blue sky outside. "Any interesting guests check in last night?" Ray chuckled. "Just the usual business types, though I heard from Tina that we've got some VIPs coming in this weekend." Lisa nodded, making a mental note to check the reservation system as she headed toward the employee entrance. The Blue Water wasn't just any hotel. It was where the elite of New York stayed. Politicians, celebrities, business moguls. Lisa had checked them all in with her practiced professional smile. Behind the gleaming reception desk, Lisa greeted her co-worker Raj, who was finishing up the night shift. "Anything I should know about?" she asked, setting down her bag in the staff area. "All quiet," Raj said with a yawn. "Though Mr. Reynolds wants the daily report by noon, not end of day. Something about a big shot coming in this weekend." Lisa logged into her computer while Raj gathered his things. The morning routine was familiar. Check overnight bookings, review special requests, confirm staff scheduling for the week. She hummed softly as she scrolled through the reservation list for the upcoming weekend. Her finger froze mid-scroll. There it was, in black and white. Presidential Suite. James Leavitt. 3 nights. James Leavitt. The name made her stomach tighten. Not just any political commentator, but the one whose face was plastered across cable news almost nightly, spouting views that made Lisa's blood boil. His latest book, America's Wrong Turn, sat prominently in bookstore windows, its cover featuring Leavitt's stern face and American flag backdrop. "You okay?" asked Priya, another receptionist who had just arrived for her shift. "You look like you've seen a ghost." Lisa shook her head. "Not a ghost. Worse. James Leavitt is staying here this weekend." Priya peered over Lisa's shoulder at the screen. "The talk show guy? The one who's always ranting about immigrants ruining the country?" "That's the one," Lisa muttered. "My dad lost his landscaping business because of people who think like him. Politicians who listen to Leavitt's type, cut the small business support programs that could have saved Dad's company during the recession." Lisa's parents had immigrated to America when she was just 5 years old. They'd built their lives from scratch, working countless hours to provide for her and her younger brother. Her father's landscaping business had been his pride and joy until economic hardship forced him to close shop. Lisa had watched her father's spirit dim as he took a job working for his former competitor. "I try not to mix politics with work," Priya said carefully, "but I get it. Still, he's just another guest, right?" Lisa nodded automatically, but her mind was elsewhere. She'd always prided herself on her professionalism, on treating every guest with the same level of courtesy regardless of who they were. But this felt different somehow. Throughout the morning, Lisa helped an elderly couple find theater tickets, directed a frazzled businessman to the nearest FedEx office, and arranged for a surprise anniversary champagne delivery. But thoughts of Leavitt lingered in the back of her mind. During her lunch break, she scrolled through her news feed on her phone, and as if the universe were playing a cruel joke, there was Robert De Niro's face staring back at her. The article detailed the actor's latest film project and mentioned he would be in New York this weekend for preliminary meetings. Lisa admired De Niro, not just for his acting but for his outspoken support of causes she believed in. He'd been vocal about immigration reform, healthcare access, and environmental protection, all issues close to her heart. She clicked on another article about him, smiling at his quotes from a recent interview where he'd criticized politicians who demonized immigrants. "What are you grinning at?" asked Carlos, one of the bellhops, as he joined her at the break room table. "Just reading about Robert De Niro's new project," she replied. "I've always been a huge fan." "Who isn't?" Carlos laughed. "My mother would probably faint if she ever met him," She's watched Goodfellas at least 50 times. As Lisa returned to the front desk after lunch, a thought began to form in her mind. She pushed it away at first, focusing instead on the afternoon rush of check-ins. But when she had a quiet moment, she found herself looking at the reservation system again. There it was, the waiting list for the weekend. And third on the list, Robert De Niro's assistant had called, looking for a luxury
suite.
The hotel was fully booked due to a finance conference happening in the city, but they'd promised to call if anything opened up. Lisa bit her lip. The presidential suite that Leavitt had booked was the hotel's crown jewel, a 2,500 square foot paradise with panoramic views of Central Park, a private terrace, and a dedicated butler service. De Niro would surely appreciate such accommodations, wouldn't he? Much more than Leavitt, who would probably just use it to host meetings with other right-wing figures. "You've been staring at that screen for 5 minutes straight," noted Jordan, her supervisor, as he passed by with a stack of welcome packets. "Everything all right?" Lisa quickly switched to another screen. "Just double-checking the weekend bookings. It's going to be busy." Later that evening, as her shift was winding down, Lisa found herself alone at the reception desk. Jordan had gone to handle a situation with a guest who was unhappy with their room view, and the night shift hadn't arrived yet. She opened the reservation system again, her heart pounding as she looked at Leavitt's booking. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. What she was considering went against everything she'd been taught about professional ethics. It wasn't just about politics, it was about integrity, about doing her job fairly. But then she remembered her father's face when he'd had to sell his equipment. She remembered the commentators like Leavitt, who had argued against helping certain types of small business owners. She remembered how her mother had taken on a second job cleaning offices at night, coming home with hands raw from chemical cleaners. Before she could reconsider, Lisa's fingers moved across the keyboard. A few clicks and Leavitt's reservation disappeared from the system. Another few clicks and Robert De Niro was moved from the waiting list to the presidential suite. She crafted a carefully worded email to Leavitt's assistant. "Due to an unfortunate maintenance issue in the presidential suite, we regret to inform you that we must cancel your reservation for this weekend. We sincerely apologize for the inconvenience and would be happy to assist in finding alternative accommodations." Lisa's hand trembled slightly as she pressed send. Then she called the number listed for De Niro's assistant, informing them that a suite had unexpectedly become available. The assistant sounded delighted, confirming the booking immediately. As Lisa logged out of the system and gathered her things to leave, she felt a strange mix of emotions: satisfaction, guilt, anxiety, and something else she couldn't quite name. Walking through the lobby, she nodded goodbye to Ray, who was helping an arriving guest with their luggage. Outside, the evening air was cool against her flushed face. What she'd done couldn't be undone now. As she descended into the subway station, Lisa had no idea that her simple act of political defiance was about to change her life in ways she never could have imagined. Lisa woke up earlier than usual the next morning. She hadn't slept well, tossing and turning as her mind replayed yesterday's decision over and over. Sunlight filtered through her apartment curtains as she stared at the ceiling, wondering if she'd done something terrible or something brave. She reached for her phone and quickly checked her work email. Nothing about Leavitt's cancellation yet. Maybe his assistant hadn't even seen the email. Or maybe they'd simply accepted it without question. After all, hotel reservations got canceled due to maintenance issues all the time, right? "You're overthinking this," she muttered to herself as she got out of bed. Her studio apartment was small but cozy, decorated with family photos and souvenirs from the few vacations she'd managed to take over the years. A picture of her parents on their 30th wedding anniversary sat on her dresser, her father's proud smile reminding her of simpler times. Her phone buzzed with a text from Tom, her husband of just 6 months. "Hope you have a good day at work. Don't forget we're having dinner with my cousin tonight. Love you." Lisa smiled at his message. Tom was the steady, calming presence in her life. They'd met at a friend's birthday party 2 years ago, and despite their different backgrounds, he came from an old-money East Coast family while she was the daughter of immigrants, They'd connected instantly. Tom worked in business operations, as he vaguely described it. Something to do with his family's investments, though he rarely talked about the details. As Lisa showered and dressed for work, she tried to push away thoughts of what she'd done. It was a small act of rebellion, that's all. No one would even know it was her. The morning commute on the subway was crowded as usual. Lisa squeezed into a spot near the door, holding onto the rail as the train lurched forward. A man reading a newspaper caught her attention, or rather the headline did. Leavitt's controversial new proposal gains traction. She looked away quickly, but not before noticing the opinion piece below it, criticizing Leavitt's stance on healthcare reform. By the time Lisa arrived at the Blue Water Hotel, she had convinced herself that everything would be fine. She greeted Ray with her usual smile and headed to the reception desk where Priya was already working. "Morning," Priya said, looking harried. "It's already crazy. The Williams' wedding party checked in early and they're not happy with the room arrangements." Lisa nodded, grateful for the distraction of a busy day. For the next few hours, she focused entirely on work, resolving guest complaints, coordinating with housekeeping, and processing new arrivals. She almost managed to forget about what she'd done, until Jordan approached her desk just before her lunch break. "Lisa, can I see you in the office for a moment?" His expression was unreadable, but something in his tone made her stomach drop. "Of course," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. As she followed Jordan to the small office behind the reception area, she felt like a student being called to the principal's office. Inside, Jordan closed the door and gestured for her to sit down. "We've got a situation with James Leavitt's reservation," he said without preamble. His assistant called this morning, quite upset about the cancellation. Lisa swallowed hard. "Oh? What did they say?" "They said they never received any notification about maintenance issues in the presidential suite, and when they called to confirm their arrival time, they were told the suite had been given to someone else." Jordan looked at her intently. "Do you know anything about this?" Lisa felt heat rising to her face. She'd always been a terrible liar. I sent an email to his assistant yesterday evening about the cancellation." "What maintenance issues?" Jordan asked. "I checked with engineering and there's nothing scheduled for that suite." Lisa's mind raced. I heard someone mention a plumbing problem." Jordan's expression hardened. "Lisa, I've worked with you for 6 months now. You've been an excellent employee. Please don't lie to me." The silence stretched between them for what felt like hours but was probably only seconds. Finally, Lisa sighed. "I canceled his reservation," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why?" Jordan asked, though his tone suggested he already knew. "Because I don't agree with his politics," Lisa said, looking down at her hands. "Because people like him have hurt people like my family. Because Robert De Niro was on the waiting list and I admire him and I just did it without thinking." Jordan ran a hand through his hair. "Do you have any idea how serious this is, discriminating against a guest based on their political views? This goes against everything the Blue Water stands for. We welcome everyone here, regardless of their beliefs." "I know," Lisa said, feeling tears threatening. "I made a mistake. I let my personal feelings interfere with my job." "It's more than that," Jordan said. "Mr. Reynolds is furious. Leavitt is threatening to go public with this, to accuse the hotel of political discrimination. Do you understand what that could do to our reputation?" Lisa nodded miserably. The full weight of her actions was beginning to sink in. "What's going to happen now?" "Mr. Reynolds wants to see you in his office at the end of your shift and—" Jordan hesitated. "Lisa, I have to be honest with you. This could cost you your job." The rest of the day passed in a blur. Lisa went through the motions of her work, smiling at guests and solving problems while feeling like she was standing outside her own body, watching herself. Priya noticed something was wrong but didn't press when Lisa said she was just feeling under the weather. At 5:30, her shift complete, Lisa found herself standing outside Mr. Reynolds' office door. She took a deep breath and knocked. "Come in," called a voice that didn't belong to the hotel manager. Lisa opened the door and froze. Mr. Reynolds was there, seated behind his desk, but he wasn't alone. Standing by the window was Tom's father, William Matthews, her father-in-law. The distinguished older man with silver hair and piercing blue eyes that matched her husband's exactly. "Lisa," William said, his expression grave. "Please have a seat." Confused, Lisa sat down in one of the chairs facing the desk. "Mr. Matthews? I don't understand. Why are you here?" Mr. Reynolds cleared his throat. "Lisa, I think there's something you should know about your father-in-law." William Matthews moved away from the window and sat in the chair beside her. "Lisa, I own this hotel, and 15 others across the country." The room seemed to spin around her. "What?" "The Matthews Hotel Group," William continued. "It's been in our family for 3 generations. Tom works in operations management for the Eastern Region hotels, including this one." Lisa felt like all the air had been sucked from the room. "But Tom never said. He told me he worked in family business, operations, but I thought it was my decision," William said. "When Tom told me he was getting married, I asked him not to reveal the family connection to the Blue Water. I wanted you to have the chance to prove yourself on your own merits, without special treatment or added pressure." His expression softened, slightly. "And from everything I've heard, you've been an exceptional employee, until now." Mr. Reynolds pushed a tablet across the desk. On the screen was security footage from the reception desk, clearly showing Lisa canceling Leavitt's reservation and booking Niro in his place. "Our system flags any cancellations of premium suites," Mr. Reynolds explained. "The security footage is reviewed automatically." Lisa felt sick. Not only had she made a terrible professional mistake, but she'd done it at her own family's hotel. She'd betrayed Tom's trust even if he hadn't been completely honest with her either. "There's something else," William added. "James Leavitt isn't just any guest. He's been my friend since college. We don't share the same political views, far from it, but we've maintained a friendship based on mutual respect for 40 years. Lisa covered her face with her hands. "I am so sorry," she whispered. "I don't know what I was thinking." As if on cue, the office door opened, and Tom walked in. One look at his face told Lisa he knew everything. The situation had just gone from bad to worse. The silence in Mr. Reynolds's office was deafening. Lisa looked from her father-in-law to her husband, then back again, her heart hammering against her ribs. Tom's expression was a mixture of disappointment and concern that made her stomach twist into knots. "I think you two should talk," William Matthews said, rising from his chair. "Reynolds, let's give them a moment." The hotel manager nodded and followed William out of the office, closing the door behind them. Lisa and Tom were left alone, the tension between them thick enough to touch. "Why didn't you tell me?" Lisa asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "All this time, you never mentioned your family owned the hotel I work at." Tom sighed and took the seat his father had vacated. "I wanted to many times. But Dad was insistent that you should have the chance to succeed on your own merits. He thought if you knew, you might feel, I don't know, pressured or uncomfortable. So instead you let me find out like this?" Lisa gestured around the office, tears threatening to spill. "When I'm about to lose my job for making the biggest mistake of my career?" "I only found out what happened an hour ago," Tom said, running a hand through his dark hair. A nervous habit she'd noticed when they first started dating. "Dad called me in a state, said one of the receptionists had canceled his friend's reservation for political reasons, and when he saw your name in the report..." He trailed off, shaking his head. "I had no idea Leavitt was his friend," Lisa said weakly, knowing how pathetic it sounded. "Not that it would have made a difference, I guess. I shouldn't have done it, friend or not." Tom leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Lisa, why? This isn't like you. You've always said you believe in treating everyone with respect, even people you disagree with." Lisa looked down at her hands, twisted together in her lap. "I don't know. When I saw his name in the system, I thought about my dad, about how people with Leavitt's views have made life harder for families like mine. And then Niro was on the waiting list, and it just seemed Like poetic justice? Tom suggested, a hint of understanding in his voice despite everything. Lisa nodded miserably, but it wasn't my place to make that call. I know that. Tom reached across and took her hand. Despite everything, his touch was still warm, still familiar. Lisa, my dad is furious. Not just because Leavitt is his friend, but because the hotel has always had a strict policy of political neutrality. We've hosted presidents from both parties, activists from across the spectrum. That reputation matters. Is he going to fire me? Lisa asked, finally voicing the question that had been hanging over her since Jordan first called her into his office. Tom hesitated. I don't know. That's up to Reynolds technically, but Dad has influence, obviously. A knock at the door interrupted them. Mr. Reynolds poked his head in. I'm sorry, but Mr. Leavitt is on the line. He wants to speak with whoever made the decision to cancel his reservation. He looked pointedly at Lisa. Mr. Matthews thinks you should talk to him. Lisa felt the blood drain from her face. Now? Yes, now, said William Matthews, appearing, behind Reynolds. James deserves an explanation, and it should come from you. Reynolds stepped aside, allowing William to enter with a cordless phone. He held it out to Lisa, his expression stern but not unkind. He's waiting. With trembling fingers, Lisa took the phone. Tom gave her hand a final squeeze before letting go. She took a deep breath and raised the phone to her ear. Hello, Mr. Leavitt. This is Lisa Chen from the Blue Water Hotel. Ms. Chen. The voice on the other end was surprisingly calm, with the same resonant quality she'd heard on television. I understand you're the one who decided I wasn't welcome at your establishment. Sir, that's not, Lisa began, but Leavitt cut her off. Let me finish. William tells me you made this decision based on my political views. Is that correct? Lisa closed her eyes. There was no point in lying now. Yes, sir. Well, at least you're honest about that much, Leavitt said. Do you know what I find interesting, Ms. Chen? I've stayed at Blue Water Properties for years. I've been served by staff of all political persuasions, all backgrounds, all beliefs. Until now, not one person has decided their personal opinions were more important than professional conduct. His words stung, partly because Lisa knew he was right. I made a mistake, sir, a serious one. It was unprofessional and unfair. Yes, it was, Leavitt agreed. But I'm calling for another reason. I'm curious, have you ever actually listened to what I have to say? Not sound bites or out-of-context quotes, but my actual positions? The question caught Lisa off guard. I've seen clips of your show, read articles about your views, but never read one of my books or listen to a full show? Leavitt pressed. No, Lisa admitted. There was a pause on the line. You canceled my reservation and potentially damaged my reputation based on secondhand information about my beliefs. Don't you see the irony in that? You've judged me without knowing me. Exactly what you probably believe people like me do to people like you. Lisa felt her cheeks burn. She glanced up at Tom, who was watching her intently, and then at William, whose expression had softened slightly. I never thought of it that way, she said quietly. Most people don't, Leavitt replied. Look, Ms. Chen, I don't know you. I don't know your story, but I'd be willing to bet there's more common ground between us than you think. For instance, did you know I support a path to citizenship for dreamers? That I've advocated for small business protection programs? My positions are more nuanced than the caricature you've probably seen. Lisa was speechless. These were not the talking points she'd expected from the man she'd seen portrayed as a hardline conservative commentator. I don't expect to change your mind about me in one phone call, Leavitt continued. But I would ask you to consider that reducing people to political labels doesn't serve anyone well. Not you, not me, and certainly not our divided country. I understand, Lisa said softly. And I truly am sorry for what I did. Apology accepted, Leavitt said, surprising her again. Now I believe you have some damage control to handle. I've already seen some chatter online about political discrimination. At the Blue Water, Lisa's heart sank. Online? Already? News travels fast in the digital age, Miss Chen. I'll let you go now. I hope you learned something from this experience. I know I have. Before Lisa could respond, the line went dead. She handed the phone back to William, feeling strangely humbled by the conversation. How did it go? William asked, though his tone suggested he already knew. Better than I deserved, Lisa admitted. He accepted my apology. William nodded, a hint of pride in his eyes. James has always been more reasonable in private than his public persona suggests. It's why we've stayed friends despite our political differences. Mr. Reynolds cleared his throat. That's one problem addressed, but we still have several others. The online backlash is growing. De Niro's team is confused about the sudden availability, and we need to decide. He glanced uncomfortably at Lisa. My employment status, she finished for him. Tom stood up and moved beside her, his hand on her shoulder. Dad, before you make any decisions, remember that Lisa has been an exemplary employee until now. This was a serious mistake, but it's her first. William Matthews studied his son and daughter-in-law for a long moment. Then he turned to Reynolds. What do hotel protocols typically call for in cases of deliberate policy violation? Reynolds shifted uncomfortably. Typically, termination. But as Tom said, Lisa has an otherwise perfect record. William paced the small office, hands clasped behind his back. Finally, he stopped and looked directly at Lisa. I believe in second chances, Lisa. But I also believe in consequences. You've created a significant problem for this hotel, one that could affect our reputation and bottom line. Lisa nodded, bracing herself for the worst. You won't be fired, William said finally. But you'll be suspended without pay for 2 weeks, and you'll be on probation for 6 months after that. More importantly, you're going to help us fix the mess you've created. Lisa let out the breath she'd been holding. Thank you, sir. I'll do whatever it takes. Good, William said firmly. Because tomorrow morning, we're having a meeting with both James Leavitt and Robert De Niro to sort this out. And you, my dear, will be front and center. Tom's grip tightened on Lisa's shoulder and she looked up at him in alarm. A meeting with both men? The thought was terrifying. Both of them? She asked weakly. Together? William's lips curved in a small smile that reminded her so much of Tom's. Sometimes the only way out is through. Be here at 9 a.m. sharp. He turned to leave but paused at the door. And Lisa, don't be late. We've got a hotel's reputation to save. Lisa barely slept that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she imagined the disaster tomorrow's meeting might become. She pictured Leavitt and De Niro shouting at each other across the conference table while her father-in-law shook his head in disappointment and Tom looked on in embarrassment. By the time her alarm went off at 6 a.m., she had been awake for over an hour, staring at the ceiling. You need to eat something, Tom insisted, pushing a plate of toast toward her. They were sitting in their small kitchen, morning sunlight streaming through the window. Tom had been surprisingly supportive despite everything, staying up late, with her to talk through what had happened. I can't, Lisa said, her stomach in knots. I feel like I'm heading to my own execution. Tom reached across the table and squeezed her hand. It won't be that bad. Dad may seem tough, but he's fair, and you already spoke with Leavitt. On the phone, Lisa pointed out. It's different face to face. And De Niro? What must he think of all this? 1 minute he's getting the presidential. Sweet. The next he's being dragged into some political mess. Just be honest, Tom advised. That's all anyone can ask. They arrived at the Blue Water Hotel 30 minutes early. Lisa had dressed with extra care, wearing her most professional, navy blue suit and minimal makeup. She wanted to look put together, but not like she was trying too hard. Tom walked her through the lobby, past the front desk where Priya gave her a sympathetic smile, and up to the executive conference room on the top floor. William Matthews was already there, reviewing documents with Mr. Reynolds. He looked up when they entered, his expression neutral. Lisa, Tom, you're early, good. Mr. Matthews, I just want to say again how sorry I am. Lisa began, but William held up a hand. We've covered that ground already, he said. Now we need to focus on fixing the situation. He gestured for them to sit. I've asked James to... Come 15 minutes before De Niro. I think it's important that we all be on the same page before bringing him into this. Lisa nodded, trying to calm her racing heart. She sat beside Tom, grateful for his steady presence. The situation has escalated overnight, Mr. Reynolds said, sliding a tablet across the table to show her a social media feed. Leavitt's supporters have started a hashtag campaign claiming liberal bias at luxury hotels. Several right-leaning news sites have picked up the story. Lisa scrolled through the angry posts and comments, feeling sick. This is all my fault. Yes, it is, William agreed bluntly. But assigning blame doesn't solve the problem. What matters now is how we respond. Before Lisa could reply, there was a knock at the door. Mr. Reynolds opened it to reveal James Leavitt, looking exactly as he did on television, tall, silver-haired, and impeccably dressed in a tailored suit. William, Leavitt said warmly, stepping forward to shake her father-in-law's hand. Always good to see you, even under these circumstances. James, thank you for coming. William turned and gestured toward Lisa and Tom. You know who Lisa is from yesterday's call, and this is my son, Tom. Leavitt shook Tom's hand, then turned to Lisa. His expression wasn't angry as she had feared, but curious. Ms. Chen, we meet at last. Lisa stood and extended her hand, surprised, when he shook it firmly. Mr. Leavitt, thank you for agreeing to this meeting. Let's sit, William suggested. When everyone was settled, he continued, James, I want to apologize again for what happened. It goes against everything the Matthews Hotel Group stands for. Leavitt nodded. I appreciate that, William. But as I told Ms. Chen yesterday, I'm less concerned about my accommodations than I am about the principle. If hotel staff can discriminate based on political views, where does it end? It doesn't end anywhere because it's not our policy, William said firmly. This was an isolated incident and we're taking steps to ensure it never happens again. Lisa felt everyone's eyes turn to her. Taking a deep breath, she said, Mr. Leavitt, I've had time to reflect on what I did, and I'm truly ashamed, not just because I've caused problems for the hotel, but because I violated my own principles. I judged you without knowing you, exactly as you said on the phone. Leavitt studied her for a moment. You know, Ms. Chen, I've spent my career arguing that we need to talk to each other more in this country, not less. That canceling people we disagree with only deepens our divisions. He leaned forward. The irony that I was literally canceled from a hotel reservation isn't lost on me. Despite the tension in the room, Lisa found herself smiling slightly at his joke. I suppose not. The question now, William interjected, is how we move forward. De Niro will be here any minute, and we need a solution that works for everyone. As if on cue, Mr. Reynolds's phone buzzed. He checked it and said, De Niro's car just pulled up. He'll be here in a few minutes. Leavitt raised an eyebrow. This should be interesting. He and I aren't exactly fans of each other's work. Lisa felt a fresh wave of anxiety. What had she been thinking, putting these two men in the same situation? The door opened again, and there he was, Robert De Niro, the legendary actor, looking slightly confused as he entered the conference room. He was shorter than Lisa had imagined, but had that same intense presence she'd seen on screen. His assistant, a young woman with a tablet, followed closely behind him. Mr. De Niro, William said, rising to greet him. Thank you for coming on such short notice. De Niro nodded, then spotted Leavitt. His expression darkened. What's going on here? I was told this was about my suite arrangements. It is, William assured him. Please have a seat and we'll explain everything. De Niro sat warily, his assistant taking the chair beside him. William quickly made introductions, ending with Lisa. Ms. Chen here is the reason we're all gathered today, William explained. She made a decision that has created quite a situation. Lisa felt her face flush as everyone turned to look at her again. De Niro's intense gaze was particularly unnerving. Mr. De Niro, she began, her voice shakier than she would have liked. I need to tell you something. Your suite became available because I deliberately canceled Mr. Leavitt's reservation to give it to you. De Niro's eyebrows shot up. You did what? I'm a fan of yours, Lisa continued, the words tumbling out. Not just your acting, but your political views. When I saw Mr. Leavitt's name in our system, I made a decision based on politics, not professionalism. De Niro glanced at Leavitt, then back at Lisa. So I got bumped to the presidential suite. Because you agree with my politics? Yes, Lisa admitted. De Niro frowned. That's not right. His response surprised her. Somehow she'd expected him to be pleased or at least understanding of her actions. I don't want special treatment because of my political views, De Niro continued. And I certainly don't want to be part of pushing someone else out, regardless of who they are. He looked at Leavitt. We disagree on practically everything, but that doesn't mean you should lose your reservation. Leavitt inclined his head slightly, an acknowledgement of the unexpected support. The situation has grown more complicated, William explained, showing De Niro the same social media feed he'd shown Lisa. There are accusations of liberal bias against our hotel chain. As you can imagine, this kind of publicity isn't good for anyone. De Niro's assistant leaned over and whispered something in his ear. He nodded and turned back to the group. My team has just informed me that my name is now being dragged into this online. People are saying I demanded Leavitt's room. Which isn't true, Lisa said quickly. It was entirely my decision. Truth rarely matters in these situations, Leavitt said dryly. The narrative takes on a life of its own. For a moment, no one spoke. The tension in the room was palpable. Then, surprisingly, De Niro chuckled. You know what I find funny about this, he said. Here we are, a conservative commentator and a liberal actor, both victims of someone else's political agenda. He looked at Lisa. No offense. None taken, Lisa said quietly. I deserve that. Actually, Tom said, speaking up for the first time since the meeting began, I think you've all just demonstrated the solution to our problem. Everyone turned to look at him. What do you mean? William asked his son. Look at what's happening right here, Tom said, gesturing around the table. People with different political views discussing the situation rationally. No shouting, no name-calling. Just adults trying to find common ground. Leavitt nodded slowly. He has a point. The narrative online is about division, liberals versus conservatives, elite hotels discriminating based on politics. But what if we change the narrative? What? De Niro asked, looking intrigued despite himself. To one about coming together, Leavitt suggested, about finding common ground despite our differences. William leaned forward, eyes bright with interest. What exactly are you proposing, James? Leavitt turned to De Niro. What if you and I issue a joint statement? Something about how this incident, regrettable as it was, led to a productive conversation between two people who rarely see eye to eye? De Niro considered this for a moment. It could work. Show that we can be civil, even when we disagree. Lisa watched in amazement as the two men, political opposites by any measure, began discussing the wording of their potential statement. Perhaps her mistake could lead to something positive after all, but her relief was short-lived. Mr. Reynolds, who had been checking his phone periodically throughout the meeting, suddenly looked alarmed. Sir, he said to William, I'm afraid we have another problem. Someone inside the hotel has leaked details about Ms. Chen's relationship to the Matthews family. Social media is now saying this was all a publicity stunt, that we intentionally created this controversy to get attention. Lisa felt the blood drain from her face, from bad to worse. Everything she touched seemed to crumble. William's expression hardened. Find the source of that leak, now. As Reynolds hurried from the room, William turned to the others. I'm afraid our problems have just multiplied. A joint statement may not be enough to contain this. The momentary harmony of the room dissolved into tense silence. Lisa looked at Tom, who squeezed her hand under the table. What had started as a simple impulsive action had spiraled completely out of control. And the worst part was, she had no idea how to fix it. The conference room fell silent after Mr. Reynolds's announcement about the leak. Lisa felt like she was trapped in a nightmare that kept getting worse. Next to her, Tom looked equally stunned. A publicity stunt? Leavitt was the first to break, the silence, his tone incredulous. That's absurd. Why would any hotel chain want this kind of publicity? William Matthews shook his head, looking suddenly tired. It doesn't have to make sense. People love conspiracy theories, especially ones that confirm their existing beliefs. De Niro's assistant was tapping furiously on her tablet. It's spreading fast, she reported. Several news outlets have picked it up already. Lisa couldn't stay quiet any longer. This is all my fault, she said, her voice thick with emotion. I never meant for any of this to happen. I made one stupid, impulsive decision, and now everything's falling apart. To her surprise, De Niro leaned forward. Look, I've been in the public eye long enough to know how these things work. Denying it will only make people more suspicious. We need to get ahead of this. Change the narrative completely. How? William asked, looking genuinely interested in the actor's opinion. Transparency, De Niro said simply. Full, complete transparency. No carefully worded statements, no PR spin. Leavitt nodded slowly. He's right. In my experience, the truth, told directly and without excuses, is always the most disarming approach. Lisa looked between the two men, amazed at how they seemed to be finding common ground despite their political differences. What exactly are you suggesting? De Niro turned to her. Tell your story, the full story. Not just about canceling the reservation, but about finding out your father-in-law owns the hotel, about this meeting, about everything. A public confession? Lisa asked, feeling a new wave of anxiety. Not a confession, Leavitt corrected. An honest account of a mistake made and lessons learned. People respond to authenticity. William rubbed his chin thoughtfully. It's risky, very risky. But at this point, I'm not sure we have better options. Tom, who had been quiet for most of the meeting, suddenly spoke up. What if we recorded it? Right here, right now. Lisa tells her story, with all of us present. It would be hard for anyone to claim it's fake or staged when they can see everyone's reactions in real time. De Niro's assistant waved her tablet. I can set that up in 5 minutes. We could stream it live on the hotel's social media accounts. William looked at Lisa. It would have to be your decision. You'd be putting yourself out there, opening yourself up to public scrutiny. Lisa swallowed hard. The thought terrified her. But hadn't she caused this mess in the first place? Shouldn't she be the one to fix it? I'll do it, she said, her voice steadier than she expected. If Mr. Leavitt and Mr. De Niro are willing to be part of it. The two men exchanged glances, then both nodded. I'm in, De Niro said. As am I, Leavitt agreed. What followed was a flurry of activity. De Niro's assistant, who apparently had experience with social media live streams, set up a phone on a makeshift tripod. Mr. Reynolds returned, and was quickly brought up to speed on the plan. He looked skeptical but didn't object. William made a quick call to the hotel's PR team to alert them. We go live in 2 minutes, the assistant announced. Just be natural. Don't try to script it. Lisa felt lightheaded. She was about to broadcast her mistake to the entire world. Tom took her hand and squeezed it reassuringly. You've got this, he whispered. And then the red light was on, and they were live. William spoke first, introducing himself as the owner of the Matthews Hotel Group. He briefly explained the situation, that they were addressing rumors about a reservation cancellation at the Blue Water Hotel, and then turned to Lisa. Taking a deep breath, Lisa looked directly at the camera. My name is Lisa Chen. I'm a receptionist at the Blue Water Hotel, and 2 days ago I made a terrible mistake. Her voice shook at first but grew stronger as she continued. She told the whole story, how she'd seen Leavitt's name and let her political feelings override her professional judgment, how she'd canceled his reservation to give the suite to De Niro instead, how she'd discovered that her father-in-law owned the hotel and that Leavitt was his friend. I acted based on assumptions and political bias, she admitted. I judged Mr. Leavitt without knowing him, without ever having a conversation with him. I violated the trust of my employers and betrayed my own values of fairness and respect. When she finished, Leavitt spoke next, describing his reaction to the cancellation and his conversation with Lisa on the phone. What struck me most was that Ms. Chen had formed her opinion of me based entirely on clips and sound bites, not on my actual positions or writings. De Niro followed, explaining that he'd had no knowledge of the situation until this morning. "I don't want special treatment because of my political views," he said firmly. "That's not right and it's not fair." The three of them, Lisa, Leavitt, and De Niro, then had an unscripted conversation about political divisions and the importance of seeing beyond labels. It was awkward at times, with pauses and moments where they talked over each other, but that only made it feel more authentic. "The easy thing," Leavitt said at one point, "is to surround ourselves with people who think exactly like we do. The hard thing, the necessary thing, is to engage with those who don't." "I agree with that," De Niro said, looking slightly surprised to be finding common ground with Leavitt. "We've become too quick to dismiss people based on political labels. Conservative, liberal, these shouldn't be barriers to treating each other with basic respect." Lisa watched them in amazement. Here were two men from opposite ends of the political spectrum, having a civil, thoughtful conversation, all because of her mistake. As the live stream continued, comments began flooding in. De Niro's assistant occasionally glanced at her tablet and whispered updates to William. The reaction was mixed at first, some skepticism, some praise for their honesty, but gradually turned more positive. "People are responding well to the authenticity," the assistant reported. "The hashtag is trending now, but in a much more positive way." After about 20 minutes, William wrapped up the live stream, thanking everyone for watching and promising that the Blue Water Hotel would always welcome guests regardless of their political beliefs. When the red light went off, there was a collective exhale in the room. "Did we just pull that off?" Tom asked, looking stunned. William checked his phone. "The PR team says it's working. The narrative is shifting from political discrimination to finding common ground. They're already getting calls from news outlets wanting to follow up." Leavitt stood and straightened his tie. "Well, this has certainly been an unexpected experience." He turned to De Niro. "It was interesting to meet you under these circumstances." De Niro nodded, a hint of a smile on his face. "Likewise." "What happens now?" Lisa asked, still processing everything that had just occurred. "Now," William said, "we implement actual change to make sure something like this doesn't happen again." He looked at Lisa. "Starting with you." Lisa tensed, preparing for the worst. "I want you to develop a training program," William continued, surprising her, "about political neutrality and customer service, about treating every guest with the same level of respect regardless of their views. You've had a crash course in why that matters. Now you can share those lessons with others." "You're not firing me?" Lisa asked, hardly daring to believe it. "I'm." "Suspension stands," William said firmly. 2 weeks, no pay, and you'll be on probation for 6 months. But no, I'm not firing you. Sometimes the person who made the mistake is exactly the one who should help fix the system." De Niro's assistant approached with her tablet. "The media requests are piling up. Would you be willing to do an interview together, all three of you?" She gestured to Lisa, Leavitt, and De Niro. The men looked at each other, then at Lisa. "I'm willing if you are," Leavitt said to De Niro. "Sure, why not?" De Niro agreed. "We've come this far." Lisa couldn't believe what she was hearing. "You want me to do interviews? With both of you?" "Your story is compelling," Leavitt said. "Young woman makes mistake, owns up to it, learns from it, and in the process brings together two people who would otherwise never have had a conversation. I think there's value in sharing that." "I agree," De Niro said. "Plus, it would help put this whole reservation mess to bed once and for all." Lisa looked at Tom, who gave her an encouraging nod. "Then yes," she said. "I'll do it." As the meeting broke up, Lisa found herself standing between Leavitt and De Niro for a photo that would later appear in several major newspapers. In it, the three of them looked slightly awkward but genuinely engaged with each other. A perfect representation of the unexpected connection they'd formed. 6 months later, Lisa sat in a training room at the Blue Water Hotel, facing a group of new employees. On the wall behind her was a framed copy of that photo, along with several news articles about what the media had dubbed the reservation revolution. "Welcome to your political neutrality training," she began. "I'm Lisa Chen, and I'm going to tell you a story about a mistake I made. A mistake that taught me more than I ever expected about respect, about assumptions, and about the danger of judging people based on political labels." As she spoke, Lisa glanced at the photo on the wall. So much had changed since that day. The training program she'd developed had been implemented across all Matthews Hotel Group properties. She'd been promoted to training coordinator, a position created specifically for her. Tom had taken a more active role in the family business, bringing fresh ideas about inclusivity and diversity. And perhaps most surprisingly, James Leavitt and Robert De Niro had maintained contact, occasionally appearing together at events promoting civil discourse across political divides. They weren't friends exactly, but they had found a mutual respect that neither had expected, all because of one impulsive decision by a hotel receptionist who thought she was doing the right thing. "The first lesson," Lisa told the trainees, "is that we all have biases. The important part is recognizing them and not letting them affect how we treat others." Outside the training room window, New York City bustled with activity, millions of people with millions of different viewpoints going about their lives. Lisa smiled, grateful for the lesson she'd learned, that beyond the labels and the politics, there were always opportunities for connection, for understanding, for finding common ground with those who seemed most different from ourselves.